I haven't really been following it like too crazy, but I've gotten like bits and pieces, so I was going to check out this video, see if there's anything new with it. So let's take a look.
I'll be honest with you, sometimes the news has got a rip and tear character. Today's one of those days. Here's what's happened. PlayStation have filed a lawsuit to stop Tencent's next game. They're arguing copyright infringement because, well, of course they are. Just take a look at this. But it's not just,
I'm not gonna lie, when they first revealed this, it did look very rip-offy of Horizon. Like, there's no denying it. It was clearly a jab at Horizon.
These things look similar. The claim is way deeper. So here's what they claim. The Tencent stole the Horizon gameplay and brand for themselves. Now, if this was just a he said, she said, that would be the...
That's a pretty bold claim to just, like, blatantly say they stole it. There's the difference between, you know, taking something and making a copy of it, like a almost one-to-one copy, and then stealing it. Like, that's a strange choice of words, in my opinion.
The end of the story. The difference is that PlayStation have kind of came with receipts, actual receipts, from Tencent's own pitch deck. The very pitch deck where they asked PlayStation if they could make their own Horizon game with crafting.
Okay, that I did not know. That is interesting. So, you go to a company and say, hey, I want to make your next so-and-so game. No, we don't want you to. Okay. 2 months later, you come out and you've got this trailer for a game that looks exactly like it. That's pretty fucking ballsy, I'm not gonna lie.
With pets, with multiplayer. Now PlayStation said no. So what did Tencent do? Well, very much seems like they just decided, screw it, we're gonna make this game and release it. We don't really care about you guys and your IP.
Okay.
Let's be real. IP not really being respected, you know? That neck of the woods.
To be fair, like, sorry to pause it a lot, but I still think IP law needs to be changed, like hardcore. And I think a lot of these companies get way too strung up in the weeds over IP, and I think that they have way too much autonomy over IP law. Like, I'm just gonna say it.
God, I'm so surprised. Okay, listen up if you're due an upgrade. After years of marathon editing, lots of gaming, and just being a silly sausage, I've learned something pretty important, that minor back pain can become pretty major. And it's why I've switched my setup to today's sponsor, FlexiSpot's E7 Pro standing desk.
There's a way to avoid
kind of
back
transformed
pain.
how I work. So here's what sets them apart.
Stay off your back.
While most standing desks wobble around in flimsy aluminium, the E7 Pro uses automotive grade steel with dual motors.
I have actually never had a desire to have a standing desk.
Which is a lot of words, but
the upshot is
to
sit on
it
your
can
ass
take
and be lazy.
440 pounds of capacity. It doesn't shake about. It actually feels completely solid and stable.
What
It's
do you guys
amazing.
think?
Monitors, recording gear, everything. It's rock solid.
Not
Whether
my
it's
cup of tea.
25 inches sitting or like 50 inches when it's standing. But the real game changer is actually just movement.
For the
right?
low
I've
price
preset my perfect sitting
of
and standing heights,
$2,000.
and throughout the day, I just cycle between them with one button. I've got a little walking pad as well.
I don't know.
And
Are they
there's
that
a saying.
expensive?
The saying
I
is,
don't know.
the best position is your next position. And what's great about this desk is it makes that effortless and easy. I can't overstate how much
understand
of
the
an upgrade
point of
it is.
them. I'm
and
just
honestly, how much
joking
of a
around. I understand they're
value
good for your
King
back, 'cause, you know,
FlexiSpot are,
your posture and
'cause
everything.
They properly back this up.
But I'm lazy.
You get a 15-year warranty in the desk, 30-day risk-free return, so you can basically do it as a trial. And right now, they're running their 9th anniversary sale with up to 65% off. And if you go to flexispot.com and use my code, which is YTE7P50, you'll get an extra $50 off. And to make your upgrade even more complete, if you get the E7 Pro desk, you'll also get a discount on their chairs. And I actually use their C7 chair every single day because it's awesome.
Okay, why
That's
are
a
you
hell of a
blinding
deal
me?
for something
Jesus.
that's already an amazing value. And it comes to these things that we use every day and spend hours on. Damn, that's where actually making the investment actually pays off. Check them out. And big thanks to them for sponsoring the show. Okay, so remember a while back we had the Insomniac hack. Now what was cool about that is we got data from way more than just Insomniac. One of the things we learned is that Horizon and Forbidden West were PlayStation's 8th and 9th highest selling games by revenue. And here's the scale actually. Horizon is their second best-selling franchise on average, and as of this story, the series has sold more than 38 million units. That's across everything, so the two core titles on PC and PlayStation, the remasters, the LEGO spin-off, and even the VR game. Yes, turns out that exists too. And it actually
Yeah.
keeps selling. As an example, over the last 2 years, it added 5 million sales. So suffice to say, Horizon kind of matters to Sony, kind of matters big time, especially now that the former boss of Guerrilla, Herman Hulst, runs PlayStation Studios. I've heard a lot of old Herman lately, and I think a lot of people don't know that, well, that's where he comes from. He comes from Guerrilla, from Killzone, from Horizon.
I am still very, very salty that they have not tried to release a PS5 Killzone game or a newer Killzone game. They have taken yet another great IP and completely tossed it aside into the trash. Killzone would make an amazing multiplayer game if they can get it right. Guarantee you right now, if you were to release a Killzone BR, I can see that becoming very, very popular very, very fast. But they refuse to go off of any of these older IPs that they still have the rights for. Like, why are you sitting on like a gold mine of IPs and you do nothing with them? Like, come on.
Now, according to Jason Schreier on the Spawnwave podcast, here's what's coming, right? Guerrilla Games have been working on a live service co-op Horizon game, basically one that will be channeling Monster Hunter, and it's forecast as their next release. Meanwhile, PlayStation has a deal with NCSoft, and they're allegedly building a Horizon MMO that's all about teaming up and exploring, which might just be why PlayStation took this massive legal step. Indeed.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yep. If you're making a Horizon ripoff and yet at the same time Sony is in the middle of developing their own, similar kind of concept game, then yeah, I can definitely see why they would want to legally kind of go after this. Because other than that, it didn't really make a lot of sense because there's tons of other like Sony ripoff kind of games that gets put out there. So yeah.
In Sony's own words, they're suing Tencent over what they call, quote, a slavish copy of the series. Their words, not mine. Well, here it is, Light of Mortirum, and it got revealed in November 2024. And when it did, it was kind of, hard to find anyone who didn't agree with the very obvious look. Post-apocalyptic jungles, techno tribes, dinosaur robots,
like
it was 100% ripping
in your
off
face,
Horizon.
blatant that it's
and Tencent
clearly a ripoff of Horizon.
Marketing. Similar concept art, same positioning for screenshots, the works. Now, sure, it is a different game. It's got some new features like base building, like animal capturing and exploiting, as seen in Palworld. And there are some genuinely interesting systems there, I think especially for weather and the dynamic world physics. But at the core, it is Horizon. And analysts like Nico Partners' Daniel Ahmad go a little bit further, because he suggested Tencent was discussing it internally as, quote, Horizon X Palworld, which, well,
it's pretty obvious that that's what they were going for. They're just trying to take something as popular as Horizon and as popular as Palworld, and they said, hey, we can do the same thing. Let's just do it. Let's just copy everybody's ideas, and we'll just combine it all into one. Now, the only thing I will say against PlayStation on this matter is that I think this Light of Mortium, I think it has more of a, more like Dark Souls kind of Monster Hunter feel to it. And I think that would fit that type of game better, in my opinion, especially given what it is. So I think Light of Mortium would be a much better fit for that kind of like style of game. Now, given all this stuff, I imagine they're probably going to rework majority of this game. I would say a good chunk of this game now has to be completely redone because of this lawsuit. Could they have gotten around this? Yes, if they wouldn't have made it so blatant. I think that they could have gotten away with it. What? Oh. What? Looks like there's a blip. Give me a minute. Something went wrong. Oh, yep. Right back. Are we good? Maybe not. Give me a minute. I might have to check something. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties arise. I don't know what happened there. Kind of lost you guys for a minute. I don't know if it's still. You'll have to let me know if it's any better. I don't know what happened. Not real sure what's going on. Are we okay? I'm not sure what's going on, so I apologize. So give me just a second here. Okay, come on. Okay, I think we're good now. I don't know what that was. I think there's a storm coming in where I live. So, yep, I just seen it. Yeah, it looks like I got a storm. So, hopefully we don't have that happen again. But we'll see. All right, let's just get back to this.
Well, it's fairly obvious. It does appear that's what it is. Now, mentioning Palworld put this lawsuit in a little bit of a sour context. If you remember, say, Nintendo's patent hoarding, their attempts to punish Pocket Pair, and all that stuff. So you may think, is this just PlayStation trying to do the same thing? Are they acting like Nintendo, and the result could be that we just won't have this competition in the market, that we won't get to play this game, or something like that? Is it just punishment for stepping on their toes?
I think
as it turns out, everyone, it is not that simple, because, as I said, Sony have got some receipts, rather crucial ones. Turns out the Tencent pitched to make a Horizon game.
I think that the Nintendo Palworld thing is like setting a bad precedent for other companies to do something similar and to go after, legal legal liability or whatever you want to call it, to go after these other companies that are trying to copycat them, because copycatting games is nothing new. We've seen it, especially with mobile games. Mobile games are notorious for this, and there are tons of mobile copycats. And as we all know, there's tons of mobile games that literally are damn near one-to-one ripoffs of Pokemon. Literally, you throw a ball, you catch a creature, and they fight each other. There are tons of these kind of games, but Nintendo has yet to go after them, and I suspect that they're going to try more diligently to do so in the future. Now I could be wrong, and they, could just give a shit less, but I think it's mostly due to Power World's success, and that has a lot to do with it. Now that Sony is now going after a copycat game, I would assume I would not hold it against them, against other companies, to try to follow suit and try to go after some of these games that are pretty much like blatant like ripoffs. So, but we'll see.
Before Light of Mortarium was revealed. That might lead them to the spicy conclusion that their biggest mistake was asking for permission first. Sony Interactive Entertainment's lawsuit demands two things, and they're the usual ones. Number one, stop the release of the game. Number two, pay damages for each infringement. So here's what Sony says happened, right? They say that in March 2024 at GDC, Tencent approached PlayStation's representatives. And when they did, they pitched a collaboration on a Horizon mobile game. It would be made by their Aurora Studios team, and that they'd be the perfect team because they had die-hard fans with platinum trophies in the franchise. That's a quote. Sony published images from the pitch deck, and the title of it is Expanding the Horizon. They literally had Aloy standing on the Great Wall of China. Who knows how she got there, and maybe there's a game in that. Anyway, the pitch was basically Horizon, but more, that they would introduce some Eastern aesthetics, they'd add gameplay elements such as survival and crafting, pet taming, multiplayer game modes, etc., which should sound familiar, and certainly will have to Sony, who of course rejected it. And when they did, they said that, quote, given where Guerrilla Games and the Horizon franchise is, they weren't interested. So no crossover, no full game development.
And I mean,
here's
to be
the
fair,
fun.
To be fair, I mean, it is their IP, it's their call at the end of the day. So for them to say, no, we don't really want to do that, we don't think this is going to be a good fit for, our kind of game, it's fully within their rights. They don't want to do it, they don't have to do it. But I think the salt on the wound is more the Tencent trying to just blatantly say, okay, well, if you won't do it, we'll just do it ourselves without your permission. That'll leave a bad taste in Sony's mouth, I'm not gonna lie.
But here's the spice. Tencent had apparently been working in this game since 2023 without Sony's knowledge. So I just want you to imagine the balls in these people to, in 2023, just develop an overt Horizon ripoff. They basically say as much, right? And to then, after having developed it for a bunch, just say, hey, Sony, we want to make this game. Sony's like, no, what the hell? Also, we're kind of making something similar internally anyway. And then for them to just go, all right, cool, we'll change the name and release it anyway. Yeah, that's ballsy. I can at least say that. But let's get back to the story. So, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me, especially with a company like Tencent, who is known for just cheap knockoffs. So, yeah, no, I mean, if you're going to approach somebody with a pitch like that, like, hey, we really want to make this game for you, will you let us, that kind of thing. Obviously you're not going to go into it with nothing to show for it. You're going to have something to go off of. You want to have a baseline for something to try to show off, so that way you don't look incompetent and say, oh, well, we don't know what we're doing, this is just an idea, we don't know how we want to do it. No, you go into it, you're going to be fully prepared, you're going to have something to show, you're going to have something as a sales pitch. So to me, that's not that surprising to see that they had been working on something, and then after they got rejected, they're just like, okay, we'll just change the name, make the character a little bit different, but still make it look similar because they want to appeal for that, that audience.
Ambitious fellows over at Tencent kept working on the game after the rejection, and then of course they revealed it. When they did, PlayStation weren't thrilled. They fully believe that Light of Mortarium is the game that they were pitched. You can see the visual links, the thematic ones, the design parallels.
Yes.
And here, Sony just calls all of it out. And here's a specific example that they flag, that the player character in the Tencent game doesn't have red hair. So the tall grass doesn't need to be red, but it is red. And that may seem a bit weird to you. Like, what are you guys talking about? Why does hair color correlate to grass color? Well, there is a reason why. In Horizon, that is a gameplay conceit to hide Aloy.
Yes.
Basically, her hair and the grass are the same color, so that
it's the same thing if you're making a stealth game, you want to have dark environments to be stealthy in. I mean, it's it's a basic concept. So that I can understand.
She actually looks like she's hidden. And of course, Sony looks at this and then says, wow, look at that. Tencent replicated this with zero thought put in as to why we made those design decisions. Now, obviously, that's not the only thing. PlayStation does allege more. They claim Tencent, quote, hired a composer from the Horizon Forbidden West soundtrack to replicate the unique sound. Plus, of course, there's all the marketing material. You've got things like a red-headed tribal woman dominating the social media visuals, which, you know, is a little bit familiar. Sony, of course, believes that this direct...
And I think part of this is just because, you know, because they went into it with their own pitch and they had already had something built to try to pitch to Sony, that when Sony denied them, they didn't have time to go back and, you know, or didn't really want to go back and change a bunch of stuff because they wanted it to be familiar to people that like the Horizon games and said, oh, well, if you like this game, you'll like this one because it looks pretty much the fucking same. And so, yeah, why go back and change it at that point?
Directly breaches their Aloy character mark. And
hey,
of course,
thanks
they
for the
say
follow.
it's designed to exploit their popular series. I guess in a way, it's almost like those mockbuster videos that exist to just confuse grandparents. Just that, of course, it's Tencent. They actually can make fairly sticky games, and they sure as hell know how to monetize them. But for Sony, it's the fact that everyone thought this was a ripoff that's actually core to their case. Things like headlines, Steam comments, video titles, thumbnails, it's all evidence. And it is evidence for a reason, because if the public consensus is that this is a confusing copy, then that is evidence of material harm to Horizon.
In a way, yes. But at the same time, I gotta give it to Tencent. They knew what they were doing. They knew they were trying to exploit a very, very, you know, specific kind of like player base. And they wanted to go after them, and so the best way to go after that player base and get people interested in your game is to make it look identical to another game. But on the flip side, you're going to alienate the fanboys of that particular game, and so it's a twofold. It's a gamble, basically. Like, yes, it might work. Yes, it might not work. It's twofold. So I understand the logic. Do I agree with the almost one-to-one copying of another game? No, because usually it's done with zero creativity at all.
Their argument then gets stronger with what allegedly happened after the reveal. Sony claims that they had informal discussions with Tencent where they wanted to resolve the IP infringement. Now, for this, because it is kind of high-stakes stuff, we do have to quote the lawsuit directly, and Tencent's response is kind of astonishing. Here it is, quote, Tencent again sought to license the Horizon intellectual property. Sony, again, communicated clearly and unequivocally that it would not license the Horizon assets to Tencent, objected to light of Mortarium, and insisted that it be withdrawn. Tencent has since signaled that it rejected Sony's demands and would forge ahead. So, that's kind of spicy. And again, just to sort of hit the point of, holy shit, the balls in these people, can you imagine being caught out at all the different ways that they have, where it's so goddamn obvious, and then whenever the very scary people called Sony come and say, hey, enough of this, cut it out, they're like, did you know, guys, by the way, we could resolve this problem if you just, you know, give us the IP? Holy shit. So with all that, it's fairly obvious why PlayStation filed.
It's like old mafia tactics, you know, like, hey, yeah, we stole your we stole your oven. We'll sell it back to you if you want to give us a cut, you know. it's I mean, it used to work. I mean, why wouldn't it work here, right?
A lawsuit. To them, it isn't just Tencent copying, it is that Tencent copied after being denied a partnership, that they just decided to take whatever the hell they wanted anyway and forge on ahead, knowing that they were completely ripping off the art style and all those different things, and making a competitor to something that they know Sony is making. Which again, I mean, if anything, kind of ballsy. And here's the rich part of all this. Tencent knows that companies pursue copyright claims, obviously. And one reason is because Tencent themselves pursue copyright claims. As an example, they won $2.9 million. A lot of money to them, I'm sure. sarcasm, from Moontoon Technology CEO in 2018. And the reason why is that Mobile Legends infringed on League of Legends. For another example, in 2020, Crisis Action, which is a game from Hero Entertainment, lost to Tencent. It infringed on 6 maps from Tencent's game Crossfire. And just the idea of, hey, that's a map that people like, we'll have it. Fairly common over there. Like, hey, oh, 2 Fort, DDoS 2? Sweet, I'll just put those in my game. Now, obviously, Tencent does this stuff, so they understand the risk here. If your copycat game is too similar, you will face legal action. But that doesn't stop them from making their own versions of popular games, and it hasn't stopped other people. Now, Pocket Pair's CEO had an interesting take on this, hardly surprising given, everything with Palworld. Basically, when Tencent built their own version, he saw it as a sign of success. His game inspired a bigger, better funded copy. But there is something kind of important here, and that's a little thing called plausible deniability. Daniel Ahmad points out something crucial here, that pitching to use a brand happens all the time. As an example, right? You may not know this, but Mortal Kombat only exists because NetherRealm pitched a Bloodsport game to Jean-Claude Van Damme, which he then rejected. So yeah, if you like Mortal Kombat, you can thank Jean-Claude Van Damme, because he's why they pivoted to making an original property. Similarly, EA outbid Rare on a Tomorrow Never Dies Bond game, and that meant that Rare then pivoted to make Perfect Dark. Now, in both cases, you can see the DNA of what they originally pitched, but, the serial numbers got filed off.
There's definitely, cases where trying to pitch something or to rip something else off, and then it teeters off or fails or falls through or whatever. But when it falls through, generally most of these companies will then change a lot of things and flip a lot of things to give it a different look and feel, versus keep the original assets or keep it looking exactly like it was to be when it was supposed to be a pitch for that IP. So generally, I think that if Tencent would have, when they got the rejection, if they would have changed it to be less Horizon looking and look more, I think that they would have went more along the lines of this apocalyptic sci-fi kind of robots, or, and take away this more, remove the dinosaur robot kind of thing and just give it more like this weird mecha kind of enemies instead of the animal robot thing that Horizon had going for it. I think they probably could have got away with it, and if they would have got rid of the tribalistic kind of look, I think if they would have flipped that, they probably could have gotten away with it as something more original. But since they decided to continue this one-to-one to Horizon, obviously that's where they made the biggest mistake they could have made. So I understand that.
Accusation of plagiarism. But with this game from Tencent, PlayStation's entire argument is that Tencent didn't file those numbers off well enough. And this is where things get interesting. Yep. Something just happened. Tencent have completely changed their marketing materials, and the Game Post spotted this. If you look at the Steam page for the game, you see that the red-headed character is gone, been replaced by these cute little robot animals. Screenshots got swapped to downplay the comparisons, and the game description, well, all the Horizon-adjacent flavor got sanded away. It is all just nuts and bolts talking about mechanics. Not even the theme, not even the setting. Just game mechanics. It's kind of remarkable. Now, the social media pages have not been updated yet, but
a lot of that's just legal boilerplate stuff because of the lawsuit. Even Palworld, even though Palworld is also going through the similar thing where, since they're in the middle of litigation, there are certain things that legally they have to change or they're required to change for now, unless things change, and then they're able to change it back. But for now, that's what's going to be. At least that's my interpretation of it.
To be fair, they've also not posted since April anyway. Now, there's no proof that this relates to the lawsuit, but the timing does feel awfully specific, as does a new confirmation from Tencent that the game launches in Q4 2027.
Now, I will say the little penguin-looking thing looks oddly familiar from another game we all know. And so they're just going from ripping off Horizon to ripping off another game that we all know. So I don't really think they have enough creativity or imagination to create their own thing out of this.
Which may mean it's less of a threat to PlayStation now. And that brings me to timelines. This case is going to be heard in California, and it will rumble on for a while. The American legal system will determine if Tencent were able to file off enough of the serial number to get away with this. And if a judge prohibits the launch, well, Tencent gets stymied while they get to build their rebuttal. If the game releases, well, we get to see how audiences react to a Horizon game that isn't Horizon. Because that's PlayStation's fundamental problem here. This game will almost certainly launch before the next official Horizon game. And it does seem there's crossover between the features of both of them. So if this is actually a good game and it comes out before, that could drive excitement for the real thing, or it could basically just attack their game before it's even came out. At the very least, it risks making anything that they do just no longer be novel, no longer be interesting to people. As far as I'm concerned, though, it's just one of those things where I think not being derivative is good, right? I know that's a crazy thing, and I think respecting games as an art form does mean looking at something like this and just finding it to be inherently...
See, to me, this gameplay looks way more appealing than what Horizon was. Horizon was more action-based, like kind of fast-paced kind of stealth stuff, versus this is more akin to something like, Dark Souls or Monster Hunter kind of thing, which I am way more a fan of this kind of gameplay than I am Horizon's. So I would have already picked this over Horizon, personally. But that's just me.
Not respectable. I just don't think it's respectable. I think it's cheap. I think it kind of just says, hey, we actually can't grab the baton and, carry it forward ourselves. All we can do is just a shameless copy of your thing. That's really all we can do. We don't have those creative chops. I just think that's kind of shitty, basically. Let me know what you think, though. And if you do want another little injection of spice into your veins, well, watch this video next.
No, it was a good video. There was a few things in there that I did not know before. I did not know that they had originally tried to pitch it as a Horizon game to Sony. That's very interesting. And also, as he said, it is ballsy to pitch it to them and then get denied and then go ahead and release it anyways. And just kind of make a few minor tweaks so it doesn't look exactly like 100% one-to-one. So at least they didn't, do the one-to-one ripoff completely, like Bungie. But no, I do still hope the game comes out. I hope that they do, kind of squash some of the Horizon stuff and kind of put in their own little flair into it. I think it would be interesting to see. But then again, that's just me. But yeah, no, I think that, these ripoffs that we see like this, I mean, it's nothing new. They've been going on for a while now. So, and especially coming out of China, like China does so many different ripoffs all the time. And like he mentioned earlier, like the Mobile Legends ripoff, it's clearly a ripoff of League of Legends. And even like character designs, abilities, everything in that game is pretty much just a ripoff of League. But I think that pretty much a lot of things nowadays draw inspiration from other things, especially when you look at, again, I hate to keep using it as an example, but Expedition 33. Clearly it took a lot of inspirations, a lot of mechanics from multiple games over the years, but they did it in a way that is, like, I would say that's like the gold standard on how you can take inspiration from something and still make your own thing. But not everybody wants to do that. Some companies, like Tencent, they want the easy route where it's just, hey, that was popular. We can do that too. Let's do exactly that. Let's not change anything, but we'll do that exactly. So, again, there's ways to do it and there's ways not to do it. So, but that's my take. But again, it's a good video.